Hey all, Sarah here, your host of What's on Your Plate podcast. I'm really excited to share today's episode, but before we dive in, I wanted to share with you something I've been working on for a while now, and it's finally ready and launched. If you want to take a closer look at what's on your actual plate, head over to my Stand store to check out my new online course, How to Eat More Plants. It's a series of video instruction with step-by-step guidance by yours truly. This course is designed to make you feel empowered in your kitchen, to help you explore bringing more plants into each meal, all with an approachable and easily adaptable way of creating. All recipes are included with the accompanying ebook. Best of all, you can go at your own pace, and once purchased, it's yours forever, so you can reference back at any time. What won't last forever, though, is the special launch price of just $27. So take advantage of that while you can. Grab the course with the link right here in the show notes, or head over to lilulos.vegan on Instagram to learn more. Without further ado, let's welcome today's guest to the show. We are here at What's on Your Plate podcast today with author Micki Abels. Micki is the author of an amazing book called My Soul Contract. This is a teaching memoir of trauma, truth, and transformation. And I'm really excited to share this space with you today, Micki, and just to let you speak on everything that you've been through. I mean, it's going to be hard to cram it all in, I feel like, in just this space of a podcast episode, but the book for sure is something that needs to be unpacked a little bit in regards to just how you have transformed yourself in your personal and spiritual journey.
Thank you so much. It's really an honor and a privilege, Sarah. I appreciate you having me on today. I've enjoyed your podcast, so to be a part of that is, I'm grateful for that. Thanks.
Well, thank you. That's very humbling, and I'm honored that you've enjoyed this space already, and to have you on is just incredible. I love being able to uplift people in their stories and in their journeys. And this, of course, is no exception to that trend. So I would love it if you kind of bring us back to some of the beginning stages of how this book even became a thing and how it even came about.
Okay, well, over 20 years ago, I had a very traumatic event in my family where decisions were made and relationships were severed, sadly. Um, what I discovered very quickly is that none of us really had any tools, any skills to not only communicate um, the heavy burdens that were going on and the conflict that was happening. So it just kind of never, it just never got resolved. It never got talked about. When things did get brought up, like I said, we didn't have the skills to work through that and talk through that. So I found myself in a place that I just felt very lost, very betrayed. Um, there was no communication, as I said. So soon, just suffering from this betrayal and loss. I call it a betrayal because everything that I had known to be true in my life up until that point, or felt to be true, um, it just had crumbled. So I was looking for answers and I really didn't have them. And without having any of the skills um, to navigate how to heal or work through this, I felt very lost. I got to a point where I knew, and I say this all the time, but I couldn't stand myself. I was a whiny friend. I was a crabby mom and a bitchy wife. And I knew I needed to find a way out of that. because it just didn't feel like me. So I got my hands on every self-help book you can imagine, read everything that I could. At the time, or actually prior to that, I was a huge Oprah fan. So I watched anything she had on, and especially Super Soul Sundays were huge because she had spiritual leaders, and those people really resonated with me. So I kind of went that path and read a lot of those kinds of books. And then I started journaling. People talked about the impact of keeping journals, and what I felt, there was such a release in being able to write down my anger, my disappointment, my rage, anything, and to get that on a piece of paper. Just there was an energetic flow where I just felt less heavy. There was a lightness that came with that. So when I decided, after I had been through so many things and felt that I had found a way to begin to heal, that's when I decided that those journals, and there were many, many of them, would become a book to help other people that were struggling with the same things I did.
I just love that. I love
Yeah.
that you have taken your own experiences and created something that is helpful for other people. I think at the core of what we are here for in this earthly existence, that is it, is
Mm-hmm.
to take our pains, our experiences, our knowings, and turn it into something that helps other people. And you've done just that, and it's incredible.
I couldn't agree more.
I think it's interesting to the healing that we have done from our parents' traumas.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that, like everything, when you know better, you gravitate towards doing better type of mindset. And I think about this a lot with my own parents. They didn't know how to heal. They didn't have the tools to do that, or they did not have resources to look to help them sort out the things that they were going through. I feel like the work that you are doing, and that many of us are trying to sift through in terms of kind of recovering from our parents' traumas that boiled over into our lives, is a relatively new thing.
I agree with that. And you're exactly right. They didn't have the tools. And I think what I realized too in my journey is that there's a there's almost a complacency to not question. I wasn't really brought up to question a whole lot. And that you just kind of went along with societal rules and convention, and that was okay. And I was perfectly okay with that myself until this happened. And then you or I started to unpack everything in my life and realize, you know, so much of my character, my personality came from generations of other people's personalities. And so, what I work with my clients on a lot is deciding all of these things that you've inherited. Some are really sparkly and great and beautiful, and those, of course, you should hang on to. But so many of them we've inherited, and we never question them because maybe they don't come into question. Maybe things we think are seemingly going okay for us. Um, but when there is a crumbling of a foundation, you do begin to question that. And I put so much of that under the microscope and really looked at that and said, which, am I just doing this because I've inherited, this is how my mom did it, this is how my grandma did it, and so on. Let's really look at that and see, what am I comfortable with? What do I believe about that practice or that behavior, these patterns that we develop? And what do I want to hang on to and let's look at the things that I don't really believe in anymore and know that it's okay to let go of some of those things.
Absolutely. I've talked about it before in this space. What are our actual beliefs and what are the beliefs that we have just been programmed to believe
Mhm.
that are not actually our own thoughts and values or opinions. And I think that that is so much to unpack. I mean, we could have whole episode just on that topic, I feel like, because there is so much that you begin to question about everything, honestly. But for sure, the things that start to feel abrasive to you as you become an adult and start moving through your life independently of your parents, and maybe even questioning things you're doing for your own children that are different than what was done for you. One of the things that really stands out to me in regards to just the generational traumas and moving away from the things that weren't working is the way that we are either punished or punish other people with silence. And I know that that's a big part of your journey in regards to the trauma that you have endured and have worked through. And I would for sure love to hear you speak more on that and why do we feel like that's the solution, just to stay silent and to ignore or even outright isolate ourselves or other people with silence?
I think there's so much involved in that. I think on a personal level, for me, um, so the middle child syndrome, right? So we're trying to make sure that everything's in balance and make sure everyone's happy. And it's very disruptive to our birthright as the middle child to have things feel disruptive. I know I certainly fell into that category growing up and making sure that, everything was balanced and smoothed out and everyone was happy. And if it wasn't, that affected me greatly. Um, so I went to great lengths for that. I think the other part of that is, again, being taught the skills that your voice is important. I didn't learn until I met my husband and his family that I remember one incident, and I'll use it because it was so meaningful for me, is that he and his mom and dad were in a pretty heated discussion. And it was to the point where I was getting very uncomfortable and I wanted to leave. And I thought, oh no, I shouldn't be here. And I don't like how this is going. And at the end of it, they stood up, they kissed and hugged, and they were totally fine. And in that moment, I saw a family that could disagree, still love each other tremendously. And not only that, but there just was so much respect. So, and that had not been modeled for me. I didn't know that that existed. So I think the silence came from knowing that even if you were to speak up and, speak your mind, say what you thought, speak your feelings, that I don't think, at least in my case, that my parents had the capacity to know what to do with that. So I think that does make us quiet. I was also taught really not to question anything. I use the old adage of, because I said so. And I'm not blaming my parents. Like you said in the beginning, these are things that, are generational. They did not have the resources that we have now. They were not taught the things that we are learning now. So I just really think that they wouldn't have had the capacity to have answers for me.
Yeah, that's really rings true for me.
Mhm.
Everything you
Mhm.
just said there for sure. There's always been consequences that came along with speaking your truth or being in a place where you want to have a disagreement or even a friendly confrontation, right? Like to have a hard conversation, there was always consequences to doing that by way of probable silence, if not just full on dismissal or even ending of relationships. So that fear that holds us back because we're scared of what we're going to lose if we say what we feel is very real.
That's for sure. Yeah, definitely. I can went through that, felt it, have made great strides to change that with my own children,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and other relationships. So yeah, it's vulnerable, it's scary, um, and I think it's a skill. I don't think unless you're really outspoken and that's the way that's your personality, that's what you were born with. I do think it's a skill. No one likes to feel uncomfortable in those moments. And it is being vulnerable, and that's extremely uncomfortable. There's that fear of just abandonment in lots of different ways, emotionally. Um, yeah, just yeah,
Yeah,
it's a tough one.
100%.
Mhm.
And what you went through with your family, without giving too much of the book away in this space today, but years of isolation from each other. Um, would you say that that experience was necessary for you to elevate yourself personally and spiritually where you are now?
It definitely was necessary. It was painful, but what I needed, I couldn't get. And that was a huge learning experience for me is the things that I felt that I needed, they didn't possess to give them to me. Um, so it's like, stumbling around in the dark and trying to grasp for something that you need and it's not there. And it very much felt like that. So, and because of what had happened, and really truly it was a choice on both of our parts. We could quit speaking, didn't know how to fix that. And then it gets to a point where it feels like it's too late. I was at a point where my mother did reach out to me at one point, but I was so angry and I just couldn't. She might have said all the right things, but I wasn't in a place where I could receive it in that way. So to remove myself, and even more so than that, it I always felt my boys really took the brunt of it. They lost their grandparents. These people that are supposed to be part of their lives, are supposed to love them unconditional, and they didn't have that. So that hurt even more. So then I became mama bear, very protective of that, and didn't want to kind of put that out there for, I don't know quite how to say it, for them to even um, to make my children more vulnerable. I'll put it that way. So to remove ourselves from what I felt was very toxic at the time was the only way that I could heal, because I needed that space. I needed that time. And during that time, I was able to heal tremendously. Unfortunately, not fully by the time my mother passed away, but definitely by the time my dad passed away, which was last August. We did have a relationship. It's not what it was before, but I wouldn't have wanted that either, because that wasn't 100% authentic. So it was what we needed. We could sit in the same room with each other and share stories and just be father and daughter. And that's I got that out of it, and I got it on my terms. And so that was wonderful for me.
I'm so glad that you were able to restore and even redefine that relationship with your dad before he passed. Um, and I find it incredibly brave of you that you made the hard decision, even though you knew that it would, ultimately hurt your boys in some ways, but you made the hard decision to remove your family from a toxic situation. Sometimes that pain that we feel from making those hard decisions is the right kind of pain, in that it allows us to just have our boundaries and our self-respect upheld. And I think that that was a really important lesson that you taught your boys, even amongst the pain of all of that.
I do too. And honestly, if I were to go back, I wouldn't do it any other way. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my life. Um, I always had such a loyalty in my backbone that just for the sake of calling people mom and dad, that you had to put everything aside, and just because of that relationship you had to go along and do things in a certain way. And so to be brought up that way, which I know a lot of people are, of course, and um, it was very, very difficult. Um, but like I said, I would do it the same way. I wanted to um, not only sh- show my boys and relate to them that to have a relationship with them should involve love and care, and they weren't getting that anyway. So to pull that away, um, it was, I think, probably harder on me. I think we even talk now, and I think for them to watch my husband and I go through what we went through was harder on them than their actual personal experience.
You know, the mention of you saying that looking back, you would not do anything differently, even though it was hard, is just the confirmation that some of the most necessary and best decisions that we make in our life are the hardest ones.
Mhm. I agree with that 100%. Yeah, I mean, I think, as you stated too in the very beginning, I believe we are here to learn and grow. And for many of us, we have challenges and burdens that we question. Why is this happening? Why do I have to go through this? And I think without those challenges and those burdens, we aren't who we are today, and we're not learning and we're not growing. Um, if we can find a way out and not get stuck in that and look at it as something that's happening for you and not to you,
Mhm.
um, kind of using the victim mentality, which, there's betrayal and loss of all different kinds. And I'm not saying that, of course, you need to grieve certain losses and go through things. And of course, you can feel depressed and anxious, but the key is to really not stay in that place too long, because these things that are happening for you, as hard as they might be, there's something in that for you. There's something to propel you forward in that. And maybe it's such a difficult loss that it makes you or steers you in the direction to do something that you never thought you would do
Mhm.
before. and that is to help people in a different capacity. I would have never thought I would write a book. I would never think I would get up and stand in front of a group of people and talk about my experience and my coaching and teach meditation classes, because I'm really an introvert. I'm very private. I say that, and yes, I have a book and I do these things, but it's taken uh, a lot of uh, internal motivation to get up and stand in front of people and talk about those things. One, I'm passionate about it, so that certainly helps. But I know every single time, just like when I'm in a group, if I can walk away with one thing that helped me, that I can use in my life to steer a course, to set healthy boundaries, to um, engage in a life that uh, I'm continually learning and growing, transforming, um, and helping others and being kind. And that's absolutely why we're here.
All of that, everything you just said, that resonates so much with me. And when you are doing work that is absolutely your purpose, it removes those insecurities of that introvert type of personality. I feel like I identify as an introvert as well. Most people have a hard time believing that, just because I have made myself very visible in a lot of ways and have shared a lot of vulnerabilities. But I agree with you in that it's when you're doing this type of thing in a way that brings light to a situation that could help somebody else, for some reason, it makes it easier. And helping people with something else that you said that is very on point, in that helping them understand that life is 100% happening for you and not to you. If you can make that distinction, everything changes for the better.
Oh, definitely. I That was something that I know I heard or read, and I thought, yeah, if we're thinking everything is happening to us, um, we are the victim. How do we move out of that? And if we stay in that space, we're operating from such a low vibrational
Mhm.
energy, and because we attract the energy that we are putting out there, it just brings more and more low vibrational energies to you. So you're already feeling stuck in this place, and then more and more is being attracted to you. And for many of us, we don't understand it. Why is this happening? Why are all
Mhm.
of these things happening? And haven't I put up with enough? Haven't I experienced enough? Um, but to just change that one word from 2 to 4,
Mhm.
um, it changes the energy within you and around you. It gives you a different perspective so that you can search and seek help for yourself, so that you can create new boundaries for yourself, so that you can try to investigate the ways to make or help you to heal. And I think once you find those things and you see some healing begin to happen, and you did that yourself, that's pretty significant. That's it's one of those moments where it's life changing, and that you now, or at least for me personally, I knew that I then had the capacity to do that, and it gave me courage to keep finding new things and keep exploring and keep digging at my own walls that I had put up, and the things that I wanted to uncover and explore and really understand at a very deep level. Um, yeah, all of those things are just huge. Energy for me is a huge motivator,
Mm-hmm.
um, to understand that. And we're really, not to get off subject, but we're really in a time when um, science is playing a huge part in explaining a lot of that about vibrational energy and how that we can change our own vibrational energy, and to know that we are attracting what we put out there, and it's pretty significant.
It sure is significant. And, it's like the difference between feeling attacked all the time versus feeling empowered all the time. And I like what you said too at the end there about living in a time. It feels like science is catching up to spirituality, or trying to at least. And I don't know that I'm full on board with science wanting to fully decipher spirituality, because I think it goes much deeper than we in this earthly form are capable of comprehending on a scientific level. Um, that's probably a conversation for a different episode. But I would love to just hear you talk about how changing that mindset to a happening to me versus happening for me shift has helped you propel yourself into your own spiritual awakening.
it it gave me wings.
Hmm. I love that.
It felt like freedom. um Really, to put it just in just a couple of words, that's what it did. So it, it allowed me to explore a place that felt so scary before. um because let's face it, when we are exploring our own um troubles, the things that hold us back to really discover our own truth, um, there's some not real sparkly, pretty parts of that. And it's a difficult place to go to begin to recognize some things that we're so easily pointing fingers at other people. Um, and it gave me a space to be able to really look inside and see, what part of this do I own? What part of this can I look at and understand more deeply? Um, Body language is huge. When I started doing this, and I had always, I always blamed my husband for being so controlling. And I'll never forget, um, I was, in meditation one morning, and I was really thinking about things, and kind of, having all of these thoughts and experiences go through my head. And a specific memory had popped up, and it made me explore, because I thought, oh my gosh, wait, am I the one that's controlling? All this time I've been blaming him, and it's me. And I would have never described myself that way ever. But it was so easy to just blame somebody else for something that was my personality. Um, and so to really look at that and be able to open that up and see it for the truth that it was, that changed things significantly for me, because I think it lifts the veil. All of these things that we are hiding behind, for the most part, to get through, to survive, to live. But what it's really doing is it's holding us back. Those protective walls and those barriers and ego and all of those things just keep us chained to a very stationary life. Um, so to be able to dig really deep, ask yourself some really, really important questions, and honesty. We can lie to ourselves all day long, but to be honest with yourself, to be able to get to those truths, to lift that veil, and to really come back to whole who you are when you came here, because let's face it, that's chipped away at from early childhood, so that we are molded into this being. And so to really come back to that place, to that wholeness, um, it just was life changing.
Thank you for sharing all of that. Um, Seeing and hearing that from your perspective is just really amazing. And when you talk about just sort of looking in the mirror, when you're looking at who to blame for things, or how to point the finger at somebody else when really it should be turned around to ourselves, and that honesty that needs to come forth in order for us to really acknowledge that and then heal and move past it. I feel like holding in those types of energies, you can tell me if this is something that resonates with you or not, but I feel like holding in those types of energies, rather than growing from them and through them, is more detrimental to our health than smoking, drug use, and so many things that, you know, terrible eating habits. We won't get too into any of those things today, but poor choices in lifestyle. I feel like the energy that you hold within your heart and in your mind and in your body is far more detrimental, to our demise, to our early demise, than any of those other things.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we feel a disruption, when we feel an imbalance, um, we might not be able to put our finger on it, right? But we know that there is something that is not feeling coherent within us. So our go-to is to start changing externally. And what I mean by that is okay, we start moving our bodies differently. We start exercising. We might adopt a new way of eating. For me, that was huge. And I am a vegan, so it has been huge for me. But we do all of these things externally. But what happened, and those things should be applauded. We should, you know, pat ourselves on the back for wanting to take care of ourselves in that way, make smart choices. But then what we run into is that what we're thinking, what lives in our heart, and what we're saying could be three different things. So we want to get to a place where our thoughts, the things that live in our hearts, and how we're speaking all match. That's where the disruption, and as you're saying, if we're not making choices in that way to um, for our own self-care and our soul care, and that energy that lives in our bodies, that's a disruption, that's a lowering of frequency. Oftentimes, not oftentimes, when we experience trauma, when we experience negative emotional uh, ex- events, those things happen mostly, they happen in our childhood, our first experiences. And because I'll go back to a little bit of interesting statistics here, um, from a neuroscientist and epigenetic researcher, that from the time we're in the third trimester in our mother's womb to about the age of 7, our brains operate in theta. That's the habit mind. That's the creative mind. This is We are sponges absorbing our environment. So we're looking at everything, everyone around us, and we're just taking all of that in. They're just downloads of information. So maybe some of those aren't so healthy, right? Maybe we endure some abuse of some kind. All of those energies, we don't have an analytical thinking mind yet. So we're not in alpha. That's our analytical mind. So at this point, that has to go somewhere. We can't analyze it. We don't have the life experience to know what to do with it. So those things settle in our bodies. What happens then is those parts of our bodies that are associated with the emotions and even the physicality of that part of the body, it lowers that vibrational frequency. Well, what we also know is that then those frequencies, those low vibrational frequencies, attract more low vibration, and it kind of manifests in the body, and to the point where, and I mean, our bodies are very adaptable, and we've changed over the years and years and years. But you're going to start to feel something within your body, a disruption, an imbalance, and you're going to feel an ache or a pain that's going to get your attention. Maybe it's a heart ache. I mean, something that just is so emotionally disturbing and hard for you that you're actually feeling that in your heart center. And until these imbalances are looked at and paid attention to, because that's what the body's asking for. That's why you're getting the signs and symbols, the aches and the pains, the little nudges here and there. Your body is telling you that it needs you to pay attention, be aware of these things so that you can dive in and care for it in the way that you need to. And so much of that is dependent on how we think about the situation, and how we feel about it in our hearts, and also how we talk about it. So again, I go back to that balance between heart, mind, how you speak, being very aware of the body, what's going on inside of it, and taking care of yourself. So as you said, to have those things be at a point in our bodies where that's causing more illness, more stress than anything else is absolutely correct. But oftentimes you know, we may go to get some help for it, and we're given something that to take away the pain or to, you know, relieve our symptoms, but we're not really getting at the heart of the matter. We're not getting at the foundation of the imbalance. So I agree 100%. Our bodies hold all of that. And those are the things, the stress from those things, the low energy from those experiences, those events in our life, all through our life that settle into the body. Those are the things that are going to, yeah, bring us out of this earth probably earlier than anything else.
What I feel like I took away from everything that you just shared was that it is more important than we even have understood to stop the generational traumas, to halt them so that they don't continue. Because when we're talking about being sponges from as early as the third trimester into 7 years of age, times in our lives where really nothing is in our control and we're just forced to be influenced by the decisions of the adults around us, it is so important that we acknowledge as a society the need for healing versus the need for just numbing the things that we need to heal from.
Excellent point, because we're very good at numbing and distracting, and even to the point of paying attention to other people's lives more so than our own. That's also a distraction. But exactly to your point, the numbing, the distracting, and some of that is because we don't know um, about some of the resources that are out there that can help to direct us, to guide us in a way to help to heal from those things, and to, more so than that, to even start to recognize those things in ourselves, and kind of where we started the conversation of the things um, that we inherited, that that we no longer need, but to come back to that, and to know that those things are so very important. And when we numb, it's just saying that, it's uncomfortable, and we don't do uncomfortable well. um, we do familiar, even though it might be toxic. Familiar is a place that we settle into often because it's safe.
Mhm.
So to recognize some of those things that we want to change, and we notice that we go back to our familiar place, we have to just, it's an awareness. It's just really, really paying attention to how you think, the actions um, that you're putting forth in your life, the direction that you're going, to have an intention um, that matches those beautiful parts that you think about in your heart. And yeah, just it takes an awareness. And I always say this work is not for the faint of heart. It's difficult. It's hard. Um, I shouldn't say that. It's really not difficult. It's uncomfortable. And like I said, we're not good at uncomfortable. So,
But your own transformation and elevation of your vibration is right on the other side of that comfort.
mm,
So if we could just embrace that a little bit more, I feel like this healing, these things that we need to recover from as adults would be done much earlier in life, and maybe at a certain point, not even needed at all, as we again just sort of work towards healing ourselves so our children don't have to endure things in quite the same way. Um, Micki, you've talked about in your book how things like journaling and meditation, things of that nature, have helped you progress in your transformation. Can you talk to us about that and what else you have found to be a tool for you in moving through everything that you have been through?
mm. Yeah, the journaling is key. Writing and knowing that that's something that's so personal, and it's between you and that piece of paper, you and your keyboard, however that works for you. There is an energetic release in that. It's a transformation of energy, something that you are holding inside your head, inside your heart, inside your body, and now it's out on paper. Um,
Mhm.
it's That's huge. There is something very magical that happens in that. Um, the other part of that, meditation, I would not, I was always interested in meditation, but like many people, I thought, well, I'm not doing this right. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And certainly don't look like that cute little girl on the mountaintop in her hands in Angela Mudra. And then you talk about emptying your thoughts. And I thought, no, how do you do that? And meditation really is not about emptying your thoughts. For me, and how I teach it and what I do is I use those thoughts to bring me to another place, and to just anytime you can quiet your body, and disconnect from the external senses and dive into your internal senses and allow anything that comes up in that moment, and to know, not only allow it, but when these things happen, when we get these visions or we see little things in our third eye, or something happens and we right away, our analytical mind wants to come in and try to sort it out and try to say, oh, I wanted it to happen, so that's why that happened. And I was thinking this, and that's why that occurred. No, you have to believe in meditation when you're being still and you're being quiet and you're just allowing anything to come in that is going to nurture and nourish you, because that's all what it's all about. It's just about love and support, tapping into divine consciousness, your higher wisdom. It's truth. And there's so much to be learned in that space, that when you have a transformative moment in meditation and you come out of that, you will want to keep doing it over and over and over again. Because when we're connecting to that, those internal senses, that truth, that divine consciousness, there's nothing like it out here. Nothing.
You shared a really personal experience in your book regarding one of your own meditation sessions. And it almost, I don't know if you use these words in the book or not, but it almost felt to me that you were having like an out of body type of experience, because you described it as not even really knowing where you were. You were so deep in that meditation. And for some people, that can sound scary, but you came out of that feeling so enlightened and uplifted and amazed. It just made you, it was almost addictive, right? It's almost like you just wanted more of that. But it's an addiction in the best way possible, because that stillness allows you to lean into your truth and your purposes and who you are. And I would love to hear you just talk a little bit about that experience that you shared in the
Mm.
book.
There's so many. Um, so, what I tell my students in class is that when those moments come, when that analytical mind wants to come in and start to just sort this thing out that might be happening, or this, whatever you're feeling in that moment, um, to, of course, notice that, let it, you know, have its time, and then watch it float away. Because where we need to be in this moment in meditation is to have the curiosity of a child.
Mm.
Kids have very little fear, right? They want to explore, they want to see what's on the other side of something. So that if we can get to a place where, now, our bodies will always want to take over and tell us to get up and do something. Meditation is a skill, just like anything else, it's a practice. So you have to just remind your body constantly that you're in charge. This is what we're going to do. We're going to be quiet, and we're going to go to this very lovely, quiet place in our mind and tap in and be curious and let go of fear and embrace the unknown. Um, so each time you're in this place and you allow yourself to travel as the observer to this unknown space that really and truly hold all of your answers for you, whether you're getting that in verbal form, there's some sort of communication coming through, whether you're seeing signs and symbols, whether you're just getting a download of emotional information. It comes in so many different ways. So I would say to just be curious. There's nothing to fear in this. There's nothing to be afraid of. The only thing we fear are our preconceived ideas, something that we can attach to an experience that we had at some point in our life. And again, that's because we want to bring ego into it. We want to bring our analytical mind into it. But we have to, the only way we can really be free in that space is to let go of all of that.
That was a great explanation. I hung on every word that you said about that. And for me, meditation has been powerful, a powerful tool for sure. And I often find myself just crying in the middle of my meditations, and not for even any specific reason that I can at least consciously identify, right? But it's it's an emotion felt in the best way that really just feels necessary, I suppose is the word that I would use.
I think that's experienced a lot is the crying. And again, that's just a release of energy.
Hmm.
It's energy moving through your body. It's an unfolding, and it's also a surrendering in that moment. So a lot of people experience that. Um, and again, it's oftentimes after class, I'll ask my students to share anything, that happened, or because of course some things happen and we don't quite explain them or we don't understand them. I'm sorry. And but I always go back to whatever you're feeling in that moment. I can't tell you what you were feeling. I can give you an observation, and from my education I can give you that point of view.
Hmm.
But whatever's happening for you in that moment, that's for you. That's your truth. That's such a personal, deep connection that you have. So that's where the answers are. Or you might come away and think, "Gosh, why did that happen?" Or I heard this, or I saw somebody. And I don't know if that's what you were referring to when I saw my grandmother, but those are those are changing moments for certain. Yeah.
For sure. I want to hear about how your own healing journey has now inspired you to help others on theirs. You've mentioned class and your students a couple times in this conversation, and I would love for you to share how you're showing up for other people now that you have um, just helped and transformed and healed yourself.
And continually doing that because I don't think we're ever done.
Right. It's not a
There's
destination, right?
there's
It's a
no
journey.
there's no finish line for sure. So in 2019, in the midst of writing, and by the way, the book took me 7 years, start to finish, from the day that I decided, oh, I want to write a book, to sharing it with my family, to trying to learn everything about that process. It was 7 years. Well, within that time, and recognizing the healing that I had done, I decided that I wanted to help other people. So becoming a life coach was one of those ways that I could do that. So in 2019, I got my certification along with my meditation instructor certification. And I see clients, and that's exactly what we talk about. It's not only talk therapy, which so many people are familiar with, but we incorporate meditation. And if that's something that the client wants, um, and I meet you where you are, and I'm your cheerleader for change. So I'm going to be there, guiding you and coaching you, listening, because I pick up on so many things intuitively, even the word choice, how people's body language, when they talk about a certain person, how their face changes. There's so much to incorporate into a session. And I give it up to my divine counsel to help guide me to help clients. And so there's often times in session I'll say something and there'll be a client might say, "Oh, that was so good. Please say that again." And I have to tell them, it just came to me. I always ask for help, to be a channel, to just be, a guide and a mouthpiece to help you in your healing. That was so important for me and mine, to listen and be inspired by, um, other teachers and healers in my life. And so that's how I'm showing up and helping others. And I can tell you, I have a 9 to 5 job, but when I do, when I see my clients and I teach meditation, that is my passion. That
Mm-hmm.
brings me so much joy. And oftentimes I'm driving home from a session and just, I have so much gratitude in my heart. There's nothing that fills me up more in a healing space like that.
I love to hear that. And because that fills you so much and leaves you with such a sense of just gratitude and appreciation for your gifts, that means that other people are feeling what you're giving to them just so intentionally and deeply. And that is for sure how we know we are being changed and transformed, is when we feel that from those that have healed before us who are now working to help us heal. So thank you for that. Thank you for showing up in the way that you do.
I always say, in each of us, we're all teachers and we're all students. And I really believe that we're all healers. We're just bringing up the next person that's right behind us, right? There's someone always that has more wisdom and knowledge to share. And there's someone walking up behind us that needs to hear it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. Micki, I feel like I could just talk to you all day. Um, but in the interest of respecting your time, I would love to hear your thoughts on what you would like to leave our listeners thinking about today.
I would like to say that for anybody listening that is feeling off kilter, that you feel an imbalance, that there's something that you can't quite put your finger on, or maybe you do know what those things are and you want to investigate and get to a place where you feel whole. Look for any resources that you have available to you. Seek out, I would say, anything which with a spiritual emphasis. My beginning was in yoga. Who would have thought? I just went because I wanted to move my body. I wanted to look like a pretzel. in poses, and it turned out to be a spiritual experience for me. So seek those things out and listen to your heart. What feels good to you? What resonates with you? What feels like truth to you? Find some like-minded individuals and share space with them. Part of this journey is very difficult because you have to let go of some of those relationships and the people that are no longer bringing joy into your life. And some of that will fall away naturally. Some of those have to be choices that you make on your own. But then to be in a place where you are surrounded by like-minded individuals that you can share your experiences and lift each other up and empower each other and just inspire each other. You will find your answers within yourself and within groups like that, for sure.
Thank you for all of that. And just thank you for the work that you're doing and for sharing this beautiful book, My Soul Contract. This is absolutely just a beautiful memoir of everything that you have been through and how you have transformed and the truth that you've found in yourself by going through and healing. This conversation has just been so beautiful, and there has been such a sense of calm and peace within the words that you have shared today. And I just want to thank you for that energy, even in this space, this virtual space. I felt that from you. So I just want to thank you for that. And I just want to thank you for just the way you show up in the world, Micki, really and truly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm grateful for you. I'm so happy that you are doing this and following your path. I know you from other things, and to then find you here was very interesting to me. And I thought, wow, that's inspirational. That is something to be applauded. So I'm grateful for you and that you listened to your heart and followed your passion.
Well, thank you. We are all a work in progress every
Yeah.
day, right? It's a continuous journey. Be brave
Yes.
enough to pivot,
Yes.
and to move into the direction of the things that feel good to you, no matter what other people's opinions or judgments may be in that regard.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Agree.
Always to stay connected with you, Micki, will be in the show notes for all of our listeners to easily connect with you and learn from you and be inspired by you. And again, thank you for just being here today. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate you.
This has been such a beautiful episode. So much of what Micki spoke on speaks just directly to my heart. Be sure to grab her book, My Soul Contract. There is so much more to learn from her that goes beyond the limitations of this space. Links to her book and ways to stay connected are all in the show notes. Please subscribe to and follow this podcast so you never miss an episode. Rating and reviewing helps this space be sustainable and keep the conversations coming. Until next time.